Hi, I'm Michelle Renee Hyatt of American Quilter Society, and I am in AQS Quilt Week Paducah. We are in the large quilt stationary machine Quilted, which is sponsored by Husqvarna Viking, and I have the pleasure of being with Ruth Ohol.
Yes.
Ooh, I did it. So Ruth, we are in front of your quilt,
Yes,
fourth runner-up, which actually took second place. You must be thrilled. It is an absolutely gorgeous quilt.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about the fabric in this quilt.
This quilt is made from Japanese taupe fabrics, and they're hard to find, and I've been collecting them for 20 years. And I did my first quilt with them probably 10 years ago. And while the fabric was laying around, I didn't put it away. I did a second quilt from them, and it's addictive. And so usually, at least every other quilt I make, I go back to these Japanese fabrics because number one, I have so many of them. Number two, I love working with them. And they're a little difficult to work with, and so I like the challenge of working with them.
Excellent.
But I bought them, I figured I might as well use them.
So before I forget, I have to ask you about the title of this quilt. So it's called Fourth
Runner-Up.
Runner-Up, but it's because it's part of a series.
It's part of a series. I decided 6 years ago that my husband is an avid Yankee fan, and he doesn't miss a game. And I thought, well, when he's watching the game every day, I'm going to work on a new quilt. So every year I do one during ball season, and this is the fourth quilt in the series.
And did you get it finished during the series? Because it seems like it's a lot of work. So.
No, it took a while. It took about 6 months to actually construct the hexagons and get the hexagons into one piece.
And they were all done by hand?
All done by hand.
So the whole top is hand pieced, the center with your English paper piecing with the hexes, and then also these beautiful corners.
They're all hand applique. I usually don't do it, but I had so much handwork in this quilt, I thought, well, I might as well put it together by hand. And I always applique the borders onto an English paper piece quilt so that I get some definition at the edge. And some people just
so that it's finished.
Right. I don't want to cut the hexagons off. I want to keep them. So I do an underlay, and then I applique the borders on.
Okay. And the applique, which is actually asymmetrical, and that was on purpose. You wanted that. And was there a reason behind that?
It was just to give the quilt another point of interest. If anybody looked that hard, they would say, oh, they're different.
And then on the edging, you actually have the piped beaded.
The beaded piping.
Yes, the beaded piping, and then the curved binding. So what made you decide that you wanted to finish the quilt with the curve on the bottom?
I wanted to give it more visual interest, and I wanted it to look more like a wall hanging than a bed quilt. So I just decided that the curve might be a nice touch.
It is. It's absolutely stunning. And then, was there a challenge in that the beaded piping?
Well, you have to keep it straight, and the piece that runs along the sides and the bottom had to be one continuous piece. So I have a friend in my quilt group who had taken I had taken a class from Beth Ann Nemish, and as he had. And so I was talking to him before I started, and after I stitched around every bead, I did a lock stitch, and it kept it straight for me. And that's a big piece of piping.
It had to be, because you couldn't break, it had to be one continuous piece.
It had to be one continuous
around the three
piece.
sides because of the curved corners.
Yeah. Well, ideally, it would be one continuous piece, and I didn't want to think about trying to do a joint. So, yeah, in my mind, it had to be one continuous piece, and it is.
So you did a beautiful job. So in the center, you quilted this on a stationary machine.
Yes.
The entire center. And then from there, how did you go about designing the quilting for the border?
I take a piece of... I have some drafting paper on a roll, and I'll pull off a sheet of paper the same size as my border. I'll mark the center, I'll mark my corners on it. And then I will draw a spine, and then I hand draw all my feathers. I don't like to mark my feathers when I quilt them. On this quilt, I think I did, but I got it to the point where I liked it. And then the dark fabric is really hard to mark on. So for a quilt like this, I buy water-soluble stabilizer. It's an embroiderer's product, and it comes in different size rolls. So I think I bought like a 10-inch roll. And I mark the design on that and lay that onto the quilt and then quilt right through it. And then you tear it away when you're done, and the rest washes away. And it's an easy way to get a marking design onto a dark fabric.
Excellent. And then just tell me a little bit about your corners, the circles in the corner with your
Well,
quilting.
the circles in the corner is something I came up with at a class one time when I had no drafting tools with me and I wanted to do some concentric circles. And I picked up a roll of painter's tape and I traced inside the roll and outside the roll, and I thought, this works. For this quilt, I think I might have chosen some circle templates I had and decided what size I want, but in a pinch, a roll of painter's tape works well.
That's good to know. Well, it is absolutely beautiful. And when can we expect to see the 5th in your series?
I might enter it next year. The 5th one is a very different quilt, and I keep looking at it and saying, I don't know that it has enough different techniques to, I think it would get juried in. I don't know that it would win an award, but next year I might enter number 6.
Okay, well,
I
we
might
hope
take
to see it.
I could take number 5 and put it in a Quilter's Choice category, but for this category, I have a feeling it's going to be number 6.
Okay, well, we love it, and we love that it's here, and we greatly appreciate you entering the contest. And we hope that you will enter the quilt contest at AmericanQuilter.com.